Hey everybody, welcome to the Muna Cardi Tunisian crochet project that we've been working on. This is our third session. We're gonna have one more next month after this. Here's kind of where we're gonna pick up from here. So this is mine. I was just telling Shelly, I've got my right front panel done, and I've got most of my left front panel done. What I'm going to show you today is how to pick up for the collar and some adjustments you can make for that, and to talk a little bit about fit so that you can make some adjustments for that as well. And then next month, we're going to finish up our cardi by talking about blocking our pieces and then putting our pieces together and then making any adjustments we need to from there. So what I plan to do for next month is to have the collar done. I'll have the sleeves done. I'm going to block one sleeve, and I'm going to block half of the cardigan, front and back. And then I'll demonstrate how to block the pieces that are unblocked, and then I'll show you how to seam it together with the pieces that have been blocked, so you can really see the difference. So that's my plan. That might be a hot mess, but that's my plan to try to do that. So if you're not done, don't worry. Nobody was done this morning. And I'll also show you about how to attach the pockets and things like that too. So this is where I am. Like I said, I'm not done with my left front. A couple people in class this morning, a couple of things that you should think about. Let me tilt this as you're going, is people realize that when they made their back and they did their honeycomb, that their honeycomb on the front panel didn't quite match because they did one of them, they did more rows or fewer rows in one of them. Mostly it was that they didn't do enough rows in the back, or they did too many rows in the back. So make sure when you are coming across and finishing your panels and doing the honeycomb that you have the same number of rows, because we are going to end up seaming here, the side seam, and you will want that line of the honeycomb stitch to kind of line up. Okay, so it's easy enough to adjust. You're gonna adjust it to fit your back. Whatever you did for your back is what you're gonna end up doing for the front, because you can take the front out. The back was the beginning, and nobody wants to start over at this point. So just be mindful of that as you're finishing, that they are gonna line up. I know we had counted rows, how many rows you did on the back, and you do the same number of rows on the front. Sometimes counting the rows can be a little iffy. I also found that measuring my distance was helpful. So we have these nice side markers on our top of our shoulders where our front panel started. So if you measure from that to the top of the honeycomb, which is where I have another marker here, that's the same length that your front panel should be before you start the honeycomb. So that's another way to check if you're uncomfortable counting rows, or you keep screwing up, whatever. It's just another double check to do. And then I did the tried and true, fold it over like this and kind of hand piece it together to make sure that things were really going to match up. I just didn't want it to, I want to double check and make sure it's not going to be really off when it's time to seam it. So just kind of pull the pieces together, and these should come out right, and they do. Okay, so we will be able to fudge a little. There's a little bit of indifference, or a little difference, but if there's a big difference, that's harder to fudge. All right, so those are just a couple of tips about getting your front and your back to match. As far as your sleeve, let me grab my sleeve. I realized I didn't pull it over here. I started doing my second sleeve. I realized, let's let's see, where is it? I started my first sleeve. I haven't ripped it out yet. This is my first sleeve. And as I knew where I wanted it to hit, and I realized it was going to be a little snug for me. I have, generous arms. So I have restarted my second sleeve a little bit bigger, and I'm kind of folding it and piecing it as I go, or using stitch markers just to make sure it's coming together as I do the increases, to make sure that I'm going to get the fit that I want. Worst comes to worst, next month, if you've got a sleeve that you just need a little more room on, there is a way that we could, before it's seamed, we could add a little bit. We could pick up along an edge and add a little bit of detail. It would all be under the arm, so you really wouldn't see it if you need a little bit more room. If you've already done a complete sleeve and you don't want to redo it, and it doesn't quite fit, we can do that. So keep that in mind. You don't want to do a whole bunch of fiddling around, but if it's just a little bit more room you need, also keep in mind you should block it before you decide that, because depending on your yarn, you may get a fair amount of give or stretch with this, okay? So a couple things to think about as we go forward. So tonight I want to show you, this is actually going to be fairly quick. I'm going to show you how to pick up for the collar. The directions tell us to, I'm going to hold it up here for you, to pick up at, she tells you to fold it in half like this, and this is what she means, so that it's like the way it's going to fit. And we're going to pick up at the bottom of the right front panel with your right side facing. We're going to pick up stitches here. We're going to pick up those unworked stitches across the back neck that we ignored previously. And then we're going to pick up stitches coming down the left front. So that will be our whole row. You will need a 40-inch cord for your hook for this, just because it's or bigger. I know they make a 60-inch cord as well, but the minimum of 40-inch cord, so you can get all the stitches on. And then we'll do a return pass, and then we'll do the honeycomb stitch. And I believe it wants you to do it for 6 or 7 rows. But at that point, you can decide if you want it to come in a little further, you can add more rows. The modification I'm going to show you is that you may not want it to have more rows back behind your neck. So when you have a wide band here, you may not necessarily want a wide band across your neck because it gets up in your hair and it folds over and it can be kind of annoying. So I'm going to show you, and the great thing is that you can try this on and see how it's fitting. If you want it to be a little narrower in the neck, not quite as deep, I'm going to show you how to modify that as well, okay? So let me switch to our camera. Okay. Okay. So here we are. I'm going to get this is the bottom of my right front panel right here. And our directions tell us to pick up along the edge here for every row that you've made. Remember, a row is a forward and a return pass. So what that gives you along the edge, let me zoom in just a little, is right here along the edge, you have these nice chain stitches that were created. When you made that, when you went in to make your last Tunisian stitch and then you chained one and then you did your return pass, that chain one that you made is hanging out right there. And that's where we're going to go under to pull up a loop to create our new row of stitches, okay? Now, if you've ever made a cardigan before, sometimes either the button band or the band that comes along doesn't come all the way down. It rides up a little bit like this, and I find that really, really annoying. I don't have a cardigan here to show you. So instead of starting here in the first chain, because I don't want it to start and have a little gap at the end, I am going to start and pull up my first loop. I don't want this cord to make such a clanking noise, but here's where I did my slip stitch bind off. And the very last, I pulled my yarn through for the very last stitch. So I'm actually going to start picking up from my collar there, and it's just one loop. It's not an actual chain. It's just where I finished did my last slip stitch and I pulled it through the loop. That's where I'm going to start, because I feel like that's going to make sure that my border, my collar, comes all the way down in line with the bottom of the honeycomb. All right, so I'm going to put my hook in there. Yeah, wind off some linen. Okay. By the way, I've been using this Sheep Just Secret Garden, which is a cotton silk blend. It is so soft. It has been a dream to work with. If you've not ever worked with it, cotton, silk, and nylon. It's really been lovely to work with. It's got a great feel. It drapes really pretty. It's great colors. Some of them are solid tweedies like this, and some are have some stripe to it. I highly recommend it. I have not, and it's not, it doesn't have any wool. And I prefer a non-wool cardigan for layering. I sometimes get too hot. I always get too hot. I shouldn't say sometimes. Okay, so I've inserted my hook. I'm just going to take, I'm going to leave it zoomed in. I'm going to take my, my new ball of yarn, or whatever you're using. I'm going to leave myself, enough yarn to weave in. And I'm going to just loop it over and pull up a loop. Okay. Just like we've been doing. It's going to be loose. So if that bothers you, I'm just going to leave that loop there for a second. You can take your end that you just used and the end of your bind off, and just not super tight, but just do half of a knot just to hold your yarn in place. And right now we got a lot of ends going on here, so let's get the right yarn going. That's an end. Here's my working one. Okay. So now you're going to pick up and pull up a loop into these chain stitches that are at the end. The key to this is making sure that you pick up consistently. You don't want to pick up one here, and then dip down and pick up here. Because what you'll end up with when they're all picked up is a little bit of a jagged line. We want this to be nice and smooth and uniform. Okay, so I'm going to go right here, and I'm picking up both loops of that chain and pull up a loop. I'm going to do this for every row. And it's making it nice and uniform. All the way up. The right front panel. Now I'm going to keep from boring you by cutting my yarn here. Okay. I'm going to move forward. Keep those loops there. And I'm going to move forward to where the end of my right front panel turns into those back neck stitches. Okay. So you're going to come all the way up, picking up in every row. So let's go back, and I'll pick up a few here. Up, up, up. All right, looks like I have, oops, sorry, 2 more rows to go. Let me get this more centered under the, 2 more to go before I get to those back stitches. So one here and one here, which is kind of in the corner. Let's go underneath that. Okay, so I've gotten all the way to the corner. I got no more stitches going this direction. So now this is my back neck. So I'm going to rotate my work. And now I have those back neck stitches that we left unworked when we did the right front panel, and then we scooted all the way over and we picked up, you should have a marker here where you picked up the left front panel. We have all these back neck stitches. This is where we're going to continue to pick up. And here you can pick up just like a regular forward pass, Tunisian simple stitch. So go under the bar and pull up a loop. So you're not going underneath chain stitches now. Now you're doing it just like we have been doing the Tunisian stitch. Come on. Go under each of those vertical bars and pull up a loop all the way across. Okay. And these all do for you. And somewhere in my notes, and they don't end up patterns on the other side of the table. I think we had marked how many stitches we left unworked. Just make sure you're picking up all of those bars. It's going to be the back of the neck, so if you miss one, it's not the end of the world. No one will ever see it. Okay. Getting here to the corner where my marker is. And then and I'm going to pick up one more here for the corner. I don't want to have a huge gap in the corner. There we go. All right, so now I'm at the point where if I kept picking up bars, I'm going to come into the left panel. So now I want to go down the front panel. So I'm going to rotate my work again. Now, mind you, you've got all of those back stitches and all of those right front stitches on here. This is all one row, which is why you need the long cord. So now we're going to go and pick up under our chain stitch and pull up a loop for each row all the way down. All right. And you go all the way down to the end. And I want to show you the modification, so I'm not going to work all the way down the front. And when you get down here to the end, and I'm not done yet, so I don't have a bind off row here, but make sure, just like we did when we started, that you go all the way to the end, go into the bind off row so that your border comes all the way down, that you don't get that little jog, okay? And then you'll do your return pass back. You will, just like we've done, you'll do a chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2, just like we've been doing. And on your next row, you will begin the honeycomb pattern. You will need to count your stitches so that you know whether you're following the even number or odd number pattern. And now this is all one row. You don't have to worry about corners because all your stitches are on your hook. And when we do our next row, you will just be doing it just like we have been, going under and picking up the bar and going underneath the bar, because we've created the return pass that has the bar. Okay. So here I've started my return pass up the side and across the back neck. And then you'll go all the way down to the front and start your honeycomb. The pattern is designed to have I want to say it's 6 or 7 rows of honeycomb pattern. So this needs to come up some. But if you're going to increase the amount of border that you have on your front panels, so here's my back neck. If you want this to be a little wider, you may not want this to be a little wider. So I'm going to show you how you can adjust for that, okay? So here's what I suggest. You will work your honeycomb pattern, following all of the rows you're supposed to. And if you want to add more rows, but not in the back, here's what you can do. You do your return pass, come back and add, start another row of honeycomb. And when you get to the back stitches, so I'm just going to work here to the back stitches. I hope this is making sense. We thought this through as a team this morning to figure out the best way to do this without having to cut yarn and weave in more ends. And you may not want to. Your board, you may be just fine, but I wanted to give you the option for modifying. Okay. So let's see here. Come back. So I've come back to my right front panel. Tighten that up. And then we would start our honeycomb again. And here is the corner where it turns into back stitches. So I'm just going to pretend honeycomb. So we'll do a knit stitch and a roll stitch. Nope, that was a knit stitch. There we go. Roll stitch and a 2 knit. You just will have to know what should be able to tell what stitch you finished on. And now I'm ready for the back stitches. So instead of continuing across, go ahead and slip stitch bind off these stitches so you're not left with the big gaping holes, just like we did before, which is, so you'll have all of your right front stitches on your needle, but these back stitches across the back neck, I'm going to go ahead and pull it all the way through. So pull it all the way through, just like we did our bind off at the bottom of our panels. Okay. So I am binding off. No honeycombing here. And you don't want to make this tight. Try to keep your tension even with the rest of your stitches. So what this will give you is a nice finished edge. You'll have your honeycomb pattern that It's part of the pattern, but then you'll have a nice finished edge here. And what I want to get over across to show you is how you're going to do the return pass on this, because you'll notice we don't have any stitches on our needle here. We've got our front panel, right front panel stitches here, and we'll have our left front panel stitches, but we won't have any neck stitches. And I didn't want to have to cut my yarn and weave in ends, more ends, which you certainly could do. You could stop and then, do this bind off across the back neck, because you'll have to do that regardless. And then cut your yarn and continue. But I thought, all right, so then I'm back to my panel here, my front panel. So I'll start adding my stitches back on in my honeycomb pattern. I'm just going to do a couple. Okay, so you'll work all the way down to the end. So you'll have all of your left front panel stitches, this empty area here, and all of your right front panel stitches, and then you'll return pass, just like we've done. And here's what happens when you get to those neck stitches. Okay, so I'm down to one. Sorry, my camera's off here. I'm down to one loop here, and now I don't have any more stitches to pull through. We found the easiest way would be to turn this over. So now that the back is facing me, I've got my slip stitch bound off patterns, and I'm just going to slip stitch a regular crochet slip stitch all the way across the row. Just going underneath. The slip stitch adds very minimal height. And it gets your yarn where you need it to be to continue the return pass for the front right stitches. And then I'll show you what that looks like. Let me just do a couple more, and then I'm going to skip ahead here. So on the front side, let's turn it back around. You have your bind off, and then we're slip stitching on top of it, which just creates a very low, it's not adding anything additional to your pattern. It's not adding the height that the honeycomb is going to add. You're just going to slip stitch on the wrong side, and you have to do it on the wrong side so that you're working in the correct direction. All right, so you'll do this all the way across. Let me get back down here where my stitches are. Okay, there's my live stitches, or my right front panel stitches. I'm just going to jump ahead here. And I will just continue to slip stitch. And make sure those slip stitches aren't tight, because you don't want it to pull in. And you might need to go over this again. So, all right, I got one more here, and then I'm back to my regular stitches. Looks like. This is, like I said, this is totally my modification. I just have a feeling I'm going to make my bands wider, but I really hate when it comes up across my neck if it goes across the back. Okay, so I'm back to my stitches, but I'm facing the wrong direction here. So now you've got to turn it around again. And with crochet, it's nice that the same. If you're just turning it around, your stitches are really going to be, you're just twisting that one stitch, which you'll never see. And then I can do continue my return pass. Yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. all the way down. So let me just do these and get this off the needle. Show you what that's gonna. So my honeycomb will continue. I can continue on with my honeycomb here. I can continue on with my honeycomb here. And I can just keep slip stitching back and forth across this back, which adds, like I said, very minimal height. And you can increase the border size on the front panels and not have to cut your yarn and weave in more ends. So that's the modification I thought would be good. Like I said, you might not need it, but if it's something you want to consider, if the nice thing about this cardigan is, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second, is that you can, I'll have to rip all these stitches out anyway. Let me pull my hook out. Is that you can try this on as you go to see how it's fitting and how wide it is. So I'm going to know as I do it, so I'm doing it over another sweater, how wide these panels are getting and how high it's coming up in the neck. If it's already, you could choose to not even finish the original honeycomb pattern all the way around. You could move to that modified slip stitch sooner if you feel like it's already coming up fairly high. So, which I might do because I feel it now. I need to like really, really adjust it and put it on, not over another sweater, but and see how it fits. But you can have that honeycomb coming down without the extra bulk at the back of the neck. Does that make sense? Did I say that right, Rocky?
Yes.
We definitely had to think that through this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a nice finished edge from the slip stitch across the back, which is nice. Just make sure that's not too tight because you don't want it to pucker or pull in. Just try to keep your tension as even as it's been. And you'll end up with a similar edge like you do at the bottom of your honeycomb, just a slip stitch bind off.
Yep.
And that's really all I had, unless people have questions. In which case, I'm happy to answer any questions. We missed you this morning, Sarah.
Here I am.
Here you are. Did you have any questions?
No, that's clear.
Good.
It is clear.
The picking up is not hard at all. It's just knowing where to go. And,
yes, and to be consistent.
And what's nice is that, your edges might look a little jagged now, but once you go into them, and then when it evens them all out, and then when you finish, when you're done with all your honeycomb, you're going to do a slip stitch bind off, which is going to give you that nice, pretty finished edge that will lay really nice across. So you're not going to have any jagged ends here either. So that's going to be really nice. I'm really looking forward to finishing this and wearing it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really motivated right now. Of course, I have to get other projects caught up, but I'm currently very motivated to work on this. So, any other questions?
No.
I don't have any.
Okay, good. So just keep working on your pieces. It doesn't have to be done. It's your own time frame. Like I said, for next month, I will have one sleeve blocked, one pocket blocked, and one half of the cardigan blocked. And it'll probably be easier. And then you can see how different it looks, blocked and unblocked. Everybody's yarn is a little different and it will block a little bit different, but you'll get the idea. I will probably show you how to seam it first, because trying to seam with the other half really, really wet will be hard. And then I will show you how to block the part that's been unblocked, but show you how I got there. But That's my plan. In my mind, it's going to work really, really well. So
It
I'm
will.
sure that that will be the case. What could go wrong?
Nothing.
Nothing, not a thing, not a thing. So keep working. And if you need a 40-inch cord, we've got them in stock. If you've got, I don't think they make connectors for the cords, do they? They make them for Gu cords, but not for, so depending on who your hook is with. My Gu cords, I have connectors, so I could connect smaller cords together to make a bigger cord. So it depends on what brand you've got, but we do have 40-inch cords in stock in all of the varieties. So we're ready if you need it.
All right.
All right. So we'll see you next month, or we'll see you in the shop the next time you get a chance.
Okay.
All right,
Will do.
everybody.
Okay,
We'll
good
see you
night.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.